Lorne Greene smiled on camera as Ben Cartwright, but when filming stopped, things got messy. He fought with his co-stars. His first marriage fell apart as he got famous, and he used his power to change how TV shows were made. He even made a fortune from a little device he invented. The real story of what happened on the Bonanza set is nothing like the show you remember. Lorne Greene was born on February 12, 1915, in Ottawa, Canada. His parents, Daniel Greene and Dora Slavin, were Jewish immigrants from the Russian Empire. They named him Lion Hyman Greene, though his mother called him Chaim. Early school records list his name as Hyman, but at some point, he changed it to Lorne Greene. Even his family isn't sure when that happened. Growing up, he saw his parents struggle. His father was a shoemaker who lost his business in 1929 when the stock market crashed. Their savings were wiped out, and like many families during the Great Depression, they had to start over. Still, his parents made sure he got a good education. They hoped he would become a concert violinist, but music wasn't his calling. As a teenager, he found something he loved while working as a drama instructor at Camp Arawan in Algonquin Park. Teaching theater gave him confidence, and he realized he had a talent for performing. But when he enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston in 1932, it wasn't for acting. He planned to become a chemical engineer. That changed when he joined the university's drama guild and began performing on CFRC, the campus radio station. He had a voice that stood out, and he knew it. To focus more on theater, he switched his major to languages, studying French and German. By the time he graduated in 1937, he had made up his mind. He wanted to be an actor. Determined to improve his skills, he moved to New York and trained at the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater. There, he studied under Sanford Meisner, a teacher known for shaping great actors. Greene worked hard, but his career didn't take off right away. He needed a job, so in 1939, he returned to Canada and joined the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation as a radio announcer. His deep, commanding voice made an impression. Listeners across the country began recognizing him, and soon he earned the title, the Voice of Canada. Then World War II began, and his role changed. He became CBC's principal newsreader, delivering wartime reports every night. Many of the updates were grim: military defeats, casualty numbers, and bad news from the front lines. His voice carried such weight that people started calling him the Voice of Doom. His broadcasts reached every corner of Canada, and for many, he was the person who brought the war into their homes. During this time, he also narrated propaganda films for the National Film Board of Canada. In 1941, he worked on Churchill's Island, a documentary about Britain's fight against Germany. The film won the first-ever Academy Award for Best Documentary Short Subject, and Greene's narration helped make it powerful. But he wasn't just a performer, he was also an innovator. While working at CBC, he invented a backward-running stopwatch. Unlike a regular stopwatch that counted up, this one counted down. It allowed radio announcers to see exactly how much time was left during a broadcast. In the pre-digital era, this was a huge advantage. The stopwatch became a standard tool in radio and television, making timing more precise and transitions smoother. It was a small invention, but it made a lasting impact and even brought Greene financial success. In 1945, he founded the Lorne Greene Academy of Radio Arts in Toronto. The school trained future stars like Leslie Nielsen and James Doohan. It had 381 graduates, and 90% of them found work in broadcasting or acting. But despite this success, the Academy struggled financially. By 1952, Greene had to close it down. He sold the building and moved to Hollywood, hoping to make a name for himself as an actor. At first, Hollywood wasn't welcoming. Greene took freelance roles and appeared in live television productions, but his deep voice, which had been his biggest strength in radio, made things difficult. Casting directors saw him as too serious, too authoritative. He was often given roles as a father figure or a powerful leader, limiting his opportunities. Still, he kept going. In 1953, He played the title role in Othello on Broadway, proving he had the talent to do more than just deliver news. His first Hollywood film came in 1954 when he played St. Peter in The Silver Chalice. The film also marked Paul Newman's debut. Directed by Victor Saville, the biblical epic had a unique visual style that divided critics. Some admired its artistic ambition, while others thought it felt artificial. Even Newman later called it one of the worst films of all time. Despite the mixed reviews, the movie was important for Greene. It put him on the big screen and showed that he could bring serious weight to historical and religious roles. But the problem of typecasting didn't go away. Greene's deep voice and commanding presence made it hard for him to land different kinds of roles. Instead of fighting it, he decided to embrace it. He took on strong roles in theater, appearing in The Prescott Proposals in 1953 and Edwin Booth in 1958. On television, he played a variety of characters in shows like Sailor of Fortune from 1955 to 1958 and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. These roles helped him prove he could do more than just play authority figures. Then came the role that changed everything. Lorne Greene's journey to becoming Ben Cartwright on Bonanza started with advice from his friend Leslie Nielsen. At the time, Greene had several offers, including the choice between playing the father, Ben, or the eldest son, Adam. Nielsen told him something that made the decision clear. If he played the father, his character would become the heart of the show. "There's no way for you to emerge without a tremendous position of significance," Nielsen said. "Of the four of you, the only one who can achieve the most prominence is yourself, because you're the father." In 1959, at the age of 44, Greene accepted the role. It turned out to be a defining moment in his career. Bonanza premiered on NBC on September 12, 1959, and became one of the first TV series to be broadcast in color. That gave it a striking look, making its Western landscapes even more impressive. Greene had been known mainly as a radio announcer and a Canadian TV actor, but now he was leading one of the biggest shows on television. His deep voice and strong presence made him perfect for the role. He played Ben Cartwright as both a wise leader and a caring father, a man who carried the weight of his past while guiding his three sons into the future. His decision to take the role didn't just shape his own career. It helped Bonanza become one of the longest-running and most beloved Westerns in history. The show lasted 14 seasons from 1959 to 1973, with a total of 432 episodes. Greene appeared in all of them, becoming one of television's most recognizable father figures. Bonanza was more than just another Western. It was a massive hit that millions of people watched every week. At the center of the story was Ben Cartwright, a widowed father raising three sons on the Ponderosa Ranch near Virginia City, Nevada. Each son had a different mother, which gave them distinct personalities and allowed the show to explore different family dynamics. Adam, played by Pernell Roberts, was intelligent and serious. Hoss, played by Dan Blocker, was big-hearted and strong. Little Joe, played by Michael Landon, was the youngest and most impulsive. This mix of characters made the show about more than just cowboys and outlaws. It was about family, loyalty, and doing the right thing. Greene's portrayal of Ben Cartwright became legendary. His deep, commanding voice made every word feel important. He was strong when needed, but also compassionate. He gave advice, solved problems, and guided his sons through life. Audiences connected with that, and in 2007, TV Guide ranked Ben Cartwright as the second most beloved TV dad of all time. Over time, Greene helped shape the character. In the early seasons, Ben was strict and often quoted scripture. He wasn't afraid to use a gun, but Greene wanted him to be more than just a tough rancher. He wanted him to have warmth and a sense of humor. That shift made the character feel more real and helped Bonanza stand out from other Westerns of the time. Beyond shaping his own role, Greene also influenced the direction of the show. He believed Bonanza could be more than just shootouts and action. He wanted it to tell meaningful stories about family and morality. Under his influence, the show tackled topics that were ahead of their time. In the 1964 episode Enter Thomas Bowers, Bonanza addressed racism by showing an African-American opera singer facing discrimination in Virginia City. Other episodes explored interracial marriage and anti-Chinese prejudice. These stories reflected the changes happening in society during the 1960s, while staying true to the show's themes of justice and integrity. Greene understood that audiences connected with emotional storytelling. He knew Bonanza could last because it wasn't just about action. It was about the relationships between characters. That approach helped the show stay popular for 14 years, and even after it ended in 1973, reruns kept it alive for generations of new fans. But acting wasn't the only thing Greene did during his time on Bonanza. In 1964, he became an unexpected music star with the release of Ringo, a spoken-word ballad about an outlaw. Instead of singing, Greene narrated the story in his deep, dramatic voice over a Western-style musical background. Audiences loved it. At the time, Beatlemania was sweeping the world, and the name Ringo caught people's attention. Some thought the song was connected to Ringo Starr, but once they heard it, they stayed for the story. Ringo became a huge hit. On December 5, 1964, it reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It also topped Canada's RPM Top Singles chart. Greene was now one of the few actors in history to star in a hit TV show and have a #1 song at the same time. The success of Ringo led to more recordings. Greene released several albums inspired by his Western persona. His music combined storytelling with country and Western themes, much like classic cowboy ballads from artists like Marty Robbins. His deep voice made him perfect for the style. From the moment he took Leslie Nielsen's advice to the years he spent shaping Bonanza into something meaningful, Lorne Greene left a lasting impact on television and entertainment. He wasn't just an actor playing a cowboy, he was a storyteller, a musician, and a man who understood what made a great character and a great show. Lorne Greene was the heart of Bonanza, both on and off the screen. He played Ben Cartwright, the wise and respected father of the Cartwright family, but his influence went beyond acting. He formed strong bonds with his co-stars, Michael Landon and Dan Blocker. They saw him as a mentor and father figure, not just in character, but in real life. Their connection was so close that they even worked on music together, recording albums and going on tour. Things were different with Pernell Roberts. He played Adam Cartwright, the eldest son, but he never felt at home on the show. Roberts was a classically trained actor who wanted complex, thought-provoking roles. He found Bonanza too simple and repetitive. He openly criticized the scripts, calling them artistically compromising, and disliked playing a character who always followed his father's lead. His frustration created tension with Greene, who took his role as the family patriarch seriously. Greene tried to convince Roberts to stay, but after 6 seasons, Roberts made up his mind. He left the show in 1965, looking for work that challenged him. Roberts also clashed with Michael Landon. The two had a strained relationship filled with mutual criticism. Landon often mocked Roberts in public, while Roberts didn't hold back in questioning Landon's acting skills. This tension made an already difficult situation worse. When Roberts left, the show's producers considered bringing in a new Cartwright, but quickly abandoned the idea after fan backlash. Instead, they introduced new characters like Candy, a ranch hand played by David Canary, to fill the gap. Through all these changes, Greene remained a steady presence on set, keeping the cast together and maintaining the warm, family-like atmosphere that made Bonanza special. Lorne Greene's life was shaped by 2 marriages that reflected different stages of his journey. His first marriage to Rita Hands began in 1938, when he was still building his career. They had twins, Belinda Susan Bennett and Charles Greene, born in 1944. For more than 20 years, they built a life together. But as Greene's fame grew, the The demands of Hollywood created distance between them. By 1960, just as Bonanza was making him a household name, their marriage ended in divorce. A year later, Greene married Nancy Deal. She was an actress and a political activist with a strong vision for change. Their daughter, Gillian Dania Greene, was born in 1968. Unlike his first marriage, this one lasted until the end of his life. Nancy was not just a supportive wife. She was an influential figure in her own right. She co-founded the National Women's Political Caucus and worked closely with politicians to push for foreign policy reforms and women's rights. She later founded the Women's Institute of International Relations, using her platform to advocate for change on a global scale. While his first marriage ended as his career reached new heights, his second stood strong through his years as a television icon and beyond. Nancy remained by his side for 26 years, supporting him through every stage of his life. When he faced health struggles in his later years, she never left his side. In 1987, Greene underwent ulcer surgery, but complications followed. He passed away on September 11th, with Nancy at his bedside. Even at the height of his career, Greene never let fame take away from his role as a father. His daughter, Belinda Susan Bennett, later wrote a biography about him titled My Father's Voice, the biography of Lorne Greene. In her book, she shared personal stories about the man behind the fame. Despite the long hours he spent on set, he always made time for his children. At home, he was warm and approachable, a father first before anything else. His parenting reflected the fatherly image he portrayed on screen as Ben Cartwright, strong, compassionate, and always looking out for those around him. His dedication to family extended beyond his own household. He formed deep friendships with his Bonanza co-stars and even helped guide them into business ventures that turned them into millionaires by the mid-1960s. Lorne Greene spent 14 years as Ben Cartwright on Bonanza. When the show ended in 1973, he faced a tough question. Would he always be known as the wise rancher, or could he take on something new? Instead of staying in the world of westerns, he made a surprising move. In 1978, he stepped into the role of Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica, a science fiction series unlike anything he had done before. The show followed a fleet of human survivors escaping the Cylons, a race of machines bent on their destruction. Adama was their leader, guiding them through space in search of a new home called Earth. It was a major shift for Greene. He had spent years on horseback. Now he was in command of a starship. At first, he wasn't sure about the role. Science fiction was unfamiliar to him, and he wondered if a story this big could work on television. But once filming began, he embraced it. Adama wasn't just a military commander. He was a father figure, a protector, and a man carrying the weight of an entire civilization on his shoulders. The show had a massive budget of $1 million per episode, making it one of the most expensive productions of its time. It featured elaborate space battles, complex storylines, and groundbreaking special effects. Despite all this, it lasted only one season from 1978 to 1979. The cost of production was too high, and the network pulled the plug. But Battlestar Galactica refused to fade away. It became a cult classic, and Greene's performance as Adama remained a key part of its legacy. His deep voice and commanding presence gave the show a sense of realism, making even the most outlandish sci-fi elements feel believable. Greene didn't take the role lightly. He wanted to understand science fiction, so he dove into research. He read over 30 books and watched films like Star Wars and 2001, A Space Odyssey. The more he learned, the more he appreciated the genre. In interviews, he talked about how science fiction made him think differently about the future. He also said that while outer space fascinated him, it reminded him how important it was to take care of Earth. His preparation paid off. He didn't just play Adama as a leader, he played him as a man wrestling with deep moral questions about survival and responsibility. Even though Battlestar Galactica became a fan favorite, it didn't lead to long-term success for Greene. After Bonanza, he struggled to find another lasting hit. Between 1973 and 1982, he starred in two lesser-known series. In Griff, 1973 to 1975, he played Wade Griffin, a former police officer turned private investigator. The show had promise, but it never found an audience and was canceled after one season. Later, he took on Code Red, 1981 to 1982, playing Battalion Fire Chief Joe Rorschach. The show, produced by Irwin Allen, followed a team of firefighters and included safety messages at the end of each episode. Like Griff, it lasted only one season. Beyond acting, Greene had a surprising passion for music. In 1964, during the peak of his television career, he released Ringo, a spoken-word ballad about the outlaw Johnny Ringo. It became a massive hit, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was rare for an actor to find success in music, but Greene had a voice that made people listen. He recorded several albums with RCA Victor, including Welcome to the Ponderosa in 1964 and Portrait of the West in 1966. His deep, commanding voice brought stories to life, making his music as engaging as his performances on screen. Even with his demanding schedule as an actor, he found time to pursue this passion. Today, collectors still seek out his records, drawn to their nostalgic charm and storytelling style. Greene's love for storytelling extended beyond acting and music. In the 1980s, he became a dedicated advocate for wildlife conservation. From 1982 to 1987, he hosted Lorne Greene's New Wilderness, a Canadian nature documentary series that won multiple awards. But his dedication to protecting animals started long before that. He quietly supported organizations like the Humane Society and worked on campaigns to protect endangered species. He didn't talk about it much, but those who knew him saw how deeply he cared. He believed people had a duty to protect the natural world, and he used his fame to spread that message. Long before Star Trek, a young William Shatner was trying to make a name for himself in Canadian theater. That's when he met Lorne Greene. The two worked together at Toronto's Jupiter Theatre in the 1950s. Greene, already an established actor, saw potential in Shatner and took him under his wing. He didn't just teach him about acting, he gave him practical advice on surviving in the entertainment industry. In 1955, while working at the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, Greene introduced Shatner to stock trading. The investment didn't go well, but the real lesson was about resilience. Shatner later credited Greene with shaping his professionalism, a quality that helped him navigate Hollywood for decades. Behind the scenes, Greene was known for his generosity. While he enjoyed success in acting and music, he never kept all the rewards for himself. He donated royalties from some of his recordings to charity, supporting causes like cancer research and wildlife conservation. He didn't seek attention for these acts. He simply believed in giving back. Friends and colleagues described him as a man who cared deeply about making a difference. Lorne Greene, the man who brought Ben Cartwright to life on Bonanza, faced serious health issues in his final months. In August 1987, he was rushed to St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica for emergency surgery. Doctors found a perforated ulcer and operated to repair the damage. At first, he seemed to be recovering, but then pneumonia set in. It's a dangerous condition for anyone, especially for someone his age. His health declined fast. By August 30th, he needed a ventilator to help him breathe. Despite the doctor's efforts, he passed away on September 11, 1987. He was 72. His death came at a heartbreaking moment. He was set to reprise his role as Ben Cartwright in Bonanza, The Next Generation, a sequel that would continue the story of the Cartwright family. He was the only original cast member willing to return, and production was set to begin in January 1988. But as his health failed, producers had to make changes. They brought in actor John Ireland to play Ben's brother, Aaron Cartwright. Fans had been looking forward to seeing Greene return, but instead, they had to say goodbye to the man who had been the heart of Bonanza for over a decade. Greene spent his final days surrounded by family. His wife Nancy and their children stayed by his side. When the news of his passing broke, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood and among fans worldwide. More than 500 people attended his funeral. Among them were Bonanza co-stars Michael Landon and Pernell Roberts, who came to pay their respects. The service was held at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, where he was later laid to rest. His absence left a huge hole in Bonanza, the next generation. Writers had to restructure the story. Producers had to rethink their vision for the sequel. John Ireland did his best in the role, but for many fans, it wasn't the same. Bonanza had always revolved around Ben Cartwright. Without Greene, it felt different. Around the world, tributes poured in. The show had aired internationally for years, and many viewers had grown up watching Greene as the wise and steady Ben Cartwright. His death brought a wave of nostalgia. Reruns of Bonanza became more popular as fans revisited their favorite episodes, holding on to the memories of the man who had shaped one of television's most beloved characters. For 14 years, Greene had played Ben Cartwright, the strong but compassionate father of 3 sons. Bonanza, which aired from 1959 to 1973, told the story of the Cartwright family and their Nevada ranch, the Ponderosa. Greene's performance made Ben one of TV's most iconic father figures. He based much of the character on his own father, Donald Greene, a man he described as strict but loving. That personal touch made Ben feel real, and audiences connected with him. But Greene's influence went beyond Bonanza. Before acting, he was known as the Voice of Canada. As a CBC radio broadcaster during World War II, his deep voice made him one of the most trusted figures in Canadian media. Later, he used that same voice to stand up for causes he believed in. He refused to perform for segregated audiences and spoke out for racial equality. He also worked on environmental projects like Lorne Greene's New Wilderness, a show that raised awareness about nature and wildlife. Even after his passing, his legacy remained strong. In 1969, he was appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada, a rare honor that recognized his contributions to the performing arts. On February 12, 1985, his 70th birthday, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In Canada, Queen's University created the Lorne Greene Award to recognize excellence in theater. In 2006, Canada Post honored him with a commemorative stamp as part of its Canadians in Hollywood series. The tributes didn't stop there. In 1987, just months after his death, he was awarded the Earl Grey Award for Lifetime Achievement at the Gemini Awards. In 2015, he was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame. These honors weren't just for his acting. They were for the impact he had on culture and entertainment.